Hello, my name is Roisin and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a reading vlog, very different from a reading vlog I've done before, in that it is going to be over the entire month of August. I'm going to be talking to you about the books that I am reading in August, and there are, hopefully, I'm going to try and be fairly succinct with my reviews. Today's the 4th of August and I have read none of the books that I've been intending to read for this vlog yet, so we're off to a good start already. Basically what's going to happen is I am at 16 months ago, I said I was going to read 30 classics before I turned 30. I turned 30 in October, and so we are only 2 months away and I have read 12 classics in that time, which is not great. For me, I am counting a classic that is anything that is more than 50 years old, so anything published before 1972, and yeah, I've read 12 of those so far. So I don't think I'm going to live up to this because I don't think I can read 18 books in 2 and a bit months, but I am going to spend most of August reading classics. I'm also going to be reading some nature writing, which will be in a different vlog from this one, but I'm going to focus in this vlog on all of the classics that I'm going to read. So I've got a pile of them up here, I've got a pile of audiobooks, and I am ready to get going. So I'll take you along my general life as well. I am off work now, it's a Thursday, because I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. It's my first of my like people I've known for a long time getting married that I'm not related to, because I went to a friend's wedding last year but they were fairly new friends. None of my other friends are married, and so this will be my first one and I'm quite excited to have a good time. Not really a married person myself, but I'm sure it will be an enjoyable day. So that's where I'm going tomorrow. I don't know if I'll take you with me, not sure how we'll go about that, but yeah, so I'm going to read as many classics as possible. I've got various different ones from lots of different backgrounds, so I'm hoping that this will be not just your standard classics, not just British and American writers. That's my aim anyway, so I'm going to try that, and I will see you, and so you will see me for the whole of this month reading as many varied classics as I can. Hello. I have been really dreadful at both reading and vlogging so far this month. It is now the 11th of August, and I think I last spoke to you on the 4th. I did go to a wedding for that weekend, and I am the sort of person where I am terrible at vlogging around other people, not because I am shy of it, although I am a little, but more because I get lost in the moment and I forget. Like, I never text anyone when I'm out with friends either because I'm just too busy. So I just forgot to bring you to the wedding. So I'm afraid you'll just have to trust me that I was there. But as I said, I have also been terrible at reading. I have read precisely one book this month on the 11th, and it's a tiny short one as well, that took me like maybe 2 hours to read the whole thing. So yeah, I've not been doing my best, but this is Bonjour Tristesse by Francois Sagan, which is translated, this edition, by Irene Ashe, and this is from the 1960s, I think? 1954, okay, so the early 1950s, and it was originally in French, and it's about this girl who is, basically it's just set over her summer holiday when she's 17 in the French Riviera, but they're from Paris, and her and her father, who is kind of a bon vivant, like has a different woman every 6 weeks or so, and she kind of lives, it's just the two of them because her mother passed away. They kind of just have a fun time, and then something happens that changes that fun time and she decides to take drastic action, and that's kind of the plot of the book. I wouldn't say the action's that drastic, but she definitely dramatises it, as 17-year-olds are wont to do. So yeah, overall I thought it was an easy, enjoyable read. Definitely enjoyed the writing or the translation, and it is Women in Translation Month, so reading a book that is written by and translated by a woman fits in with that. But overall I don't think it would really stick with me that much. It had some lovely writing, it had interesting characters. I enjoy those kind of fringes of posh society kind of people, like the Mitfords, that kind of thing. I do enjoy that. Posh people behaving badly is a genre of classic that I have enjoyed in the past. But for this one, it just felt a little flat and like it didn't have that much going for it. Talking of posh people behaving badly, I am also about 20% of the way into Vanity Fair, and this one is chunky. I'm listening to the audiobook, and it's about 30 hours, so I've read more pages in Vanity Fair than there are in Bonjour Tristesse, so I'm not reading, but definitely not finishing anything. And I'm enjoying it. It's set at the beginning of the 19th century, but I think we're going to cover the whole of Becky Sharp's life, and so we're going to go further into the 19th century because I believe it was published in the 1850s, but I'm not sure and I haven't looked it up, so that's just a guess. And I'm enjoying it so far. It definitely does that 19th century thing of having a very clear narrator who is a strong voice and is not a character in the book, so it's told from in the third person, but the narrator often injects their own thoughts and opinions on the world, and gives us kind of a wry, sarcastic eye, in the kind of vein of Jane Austen's kind of omniscient narrator who sometimes gets closer to what some of the characters are thinking and their perspectives, and then also gives us kind of an overview and a kind of comic look. It is also reminding me of like Oscar Wilde in that sense. It's very comedic and comedy of manners, and we are definitely like satirising the upper classes in Victorian society. Becky Sharp is a governess who is working in a lord's house, and her friend from school is also one of the lead characters, who is from a kind of lower, well, upper middle class, but not properly, like her family are from trade, and they're trying to get married basically, but it's there's not a lot of like plot that's going on. We are very much exploring different characters and mocking the upper classes, and they are all kind of ridiculous, but in a not quite as caricature as Dickens, but there is definitely an element of that, and of the ridiculous. It's one of those books where I'm like, wait a minute, has something happened, or have we just been talking about these family? Because he'll just suddenly start talking about a new family. I'm like, wait, who are these people? And then we'll come back round to how it connects. I think I had trouble with like Dr. Zhivago and stuff like that. I find like classics sometimes, long classics, I find I just have to keep going and like let it wash over me rather than trying to grasp exactly what's going on at every point, because you'll get there eventually, and you just kind of have to enjoy it. Kind of like The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber as well, which is historical fiction, but I could see how he was using the style of this kind of 19th century novel. So yeah, we've still got a long way to go, but I think it's going to be a fun ride. The other one that I've started is A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi wa Thiongo, and this is a Kenyan classic. This one is from the 60s, I think, published in 1967, and it started off being after the Mau Mau rebellion in the concentration camps in Kenya by the British, and this is set in 1963, Kenya on the verge of Uhuru, Independence Day, and so different characters have been in the concentration camps and they are out now, and they're kind of talking about the political situation. I'm only about a quarter of the way through, so there's still a lot to go on, and it's kind of different characters thinking about the time of colonialism and like the tail end of colonialism, and we haven't really gone into the camp so much, they're just being referred to. I don't know if they will come out more during the time. The men and women who live there have been transformed irrevocably by the uprising. Kihika, the legendary rebel leader, was fatally betrayed to the white men. Yeah, so we're trying to work out who betrayed this man as well. That's kind of the mystery at it. It's quite detached writing style, at least the first part was. It's got a bit more engaging now, which is a trouble that I often have with mid-century classics. There are lots that I felt a bit like it's more cerebral than really embedded in a setting or time period, but hopefully it'll get less like that as I get more like into the world that is being built by the novel. Now I'm going away for the weekend, so insert a montage here, and I will get back to you with some more talk of books. So looking a bit worse for wear. Basically I'm having a arthritis flare that's quite bad, very bad. One of the worst I've had since I started medication, immunosuppressants, in January 2020. So I'm gonna take my hair down, hopefully I look less mad. So I have been in bed for about 36 hours at this point, which is not the most fun. Because I feel all right when I'm in bed, but as soon as I get up, everything hurts. And I'm also starting to get a migraine, which is always pleasant to add on top, and I've had digestive trouble as well. So you can imagine it's been an excellent few days. But I'm not here to bitch about the state of my health. I am here to talk about books. So I have started reading Reuben Sachs by Amy Levy, and I am halfway through it now, and this is a Victorian novel, and this is about an Anglo-Jewish family and their relationships with one another. So Reuben Sachs is the prodigal son returning after he had a mental breakdown and had to go to Australia. The doctor prescribed a trip to Australia for his mental breakdown, and he's come back to his family and they want him to be like famous and do well, but he's fallen in love with a kind of cousin of a cousin who is not well-to-do enough for them, basically. But mostly it's about Anglo-Jewish culture in the late 19th century in London, and so it like deals with the minutiae of that and of the religiosity, and of the culture, the people who are like very rooted in the culture and speak Yiddish or Hebrew and are very religious, and then there are people who are more secular and move away from that, and are more integrated into, like there's one family that only knows Jewish people and they don't talk to non-Jewish people, but then there's another, the other people are more like integrated into high society in London and wanting to be part of high society. And so it's very interesting to read about that culture, because I never have read about 19th century, being a Jewish person in London in the 19th century. So it's an interesting thing to be explored. It's very abrupt and very quite like abrasive, in the way that people who are inside a culture will often talk about a culture in a way that would be uncomfortable if someone not from that culture talks about it, and it's almost like you don't share that with outsiders, which from the introduction it sounds like a lot of the Jewish people in London at the time found it insufferable that Amy Levy did share it with outsiders, and did like let people in on the way she talks about the way people look. It feels like would be wildly anti-Semitic if a non-Jewish person talked about that in that way, and I don't know if it's like using the language of the time, which was anti-Semitic, to talk about it is not considered so. So it just feels a little shocking, but I feel like it's just because I don't know about it. Halfway through it, enjoying it, very readable, kind of doesn't even feel like a 19th century novel, feels very modern, so enjoying that. And then I'm also halfway through Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackery, which is much bigger and more intense novel than Reuben Sachs, but still a comedy, quite funny, wildly racist, and it's something that always comes up, obviously, when you're reading classics written by white people. There is elements of that racism in there. There is a character who's mixed race who went to the same school, and she's like a mixed race heiress, and about whether people who would marry her and things like that, like they're all like clamoring to marry her because she's so very rich, but the way that they talk about like not minding that she's mixed race is very like difficult to read. Although someone commented on my video about the new adaptation of Persuasion, saying that it wouldn't have been that multicultural, and despite the fact that that's obviously blind casting, which is a theatre tradition, the fact is that this novel is set at the same time as Persuasion, and we have a mixed race heiress being one of the main characters, well, a central part of the plot. So it's not true to say that everyone would be a lily white in Regency Britain, but anyway, I am enjoying it outside of that, and I do feel like there's no one to profit off of me because he's been dead for a long time, William Makepeace Thackery, and yeah, so I think I'm reading it anyway, but I can understand why someone would want to avoid that if they did. And I think it's, yeah, very, very different from what I was expecting. Becky Sharp is our main character, but she's also not. Like, we spend a lot of time in the houses of different people, mocking them, basically roundly mocking everyone, and Becky Sharp and her husband are kind of grifters, which is quite fun to have at the centre of a novel, these morally grey characters who are using their wiles to get money out of people. And following the perspective of Mr. Wickham, the brother and sister from Mansfield Park, I can't remember their names, but it's a bit like if they were a married couple instead of brother and sister, and we're following them. I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of downfall that happens, if such a morally reprehensible book would have been so well received at the time, although it's written later than it's set. It's set during the Napoleonic Wars, and we had a big bit that happened during the Battle of Waterloo recently, which was, yeah, well done. So most of all, I'm enjoying it. It's just a big kind of a fun romp of a book, and I think it's good, and the characters are really visual. I can really see and understand them, but they are all comedy characters. There isn't as much depth to them as there are in other books. So yeah, that's what I'm reading now. Hello. It's it's a work day, and I am not feeling well at all. So I'm going to be working from home. This is my office. I will be in here. But I've been not well for a few days, nearly a week now. And so I've been inside the house for a very long time. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take you with me on a walk. I haven't been on a walk in a while, hopefully. I'm not going to go too far, so I can always turn around and come home if I feel really bad, but I'm just trying to get out of the house. I intended to go to work today, but I don't think I can manage it to make it all the way into work. It's like, if I could like drive, it probably would be fine, but I can't drive, so I have to like cycle to the station, or cycle all the way to work. Those are my only options, and I don't feel up for them. I probably could, but like it would be a lot of stress and a lot of strain. Hopefully I'll manage it tomorrow. But anyway, I'm going to take you for a walk, and then when we get back we can talk about the books that I finished, because I've actually finished some books now. It is raining, which I'm very pleased about. I am sick to death of summer. It lasts way too long, and I want it to be autumn now, please. So we are pleased that it is raining. I'm sorry if you can also hear the recycling men bashing about glass, but I'm here to talk to you about books, not the bins. So I've finished Reuben Sachs by Amy Levi, and I would say that my opinions and thoughts haven't changed that much since I was halfway through. I did enjoy it. I thought it was very engaging. I thought it was an interesting look at a subculture. I've discovered that I really like books that are very specific in terms of a culture that they are looking at, that they are not just like sort of broader, that they have that specificity. I find it very interesting. And also, I think helps to build a world even when it's set in a real world. It helps to like build a consciousness of setting, which is something that I find very important in books. I like the setting to come alive, whether that setting is physical or metaphysical, although it is physical in this case. But yeah, I really did enjoy it, but in that sense. But I think there's not a lot of plot going in here, so if you are expecting a Victorian romance, I feel like it doesn't really have that. A lot of the Victorian books that I've been reading recently are more studies of people and culture, like Vanity Fair, which I'm still only about 2/3 of the way through because it is enormous, is also kind of just a study of characters and of the setting of Vanity Fair, by which he means like the upper middle and upper classes in 19th century Britain, early 19th century Britain. And there is stuff going on, but the plot's not important. But that's different from this because it has such a large cast, and this is very much smaller. I mean, it's a tiny book, but also the cast is smaller. But overall, yeah, I think a lot of the characters weren't that fleshed out. They were more sort of representative of types that one would discover in this culture. And I think it did an interesting job of addressing like the sort of minutiae and the different opinions and ideas. It was quite like sarcastic and quite cutting, which I think is why a lot of Jewish people at the time didn't enjoy it, because I suppose if you're living through a time when people in the same continent as you are being pogromed, and then someone from your own culture writes a very scathing satirical book about you, maybe you wouldn't be so happy about that. But yeah, overall I think it won't be that memorable for me. It won't really stick around because there wasn't that much to grasp onto. It was just this satire, and so it felt more like a kind of sketch than a like actual fully realised novel. I think late Victorian novels, all the ones I've read, I haven't loved late Victorian novels. I prefer the earlier part of the century, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, good, but not memorable. I am halfway through A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi wa Thiongo now. This one is set in Kenya, and it is, oh god, I didn't realise I'd done that. It is set in Kenya, and it is set sort of in two time periods. So we have been going back and forwards. We're at the eve of Uhuru, which is Independence Day, seeing through the eyes of many different men who were their experience on the eve of Uhuru and back before the emergency and during the emergency, and in concentration camps. It's kind of very lightly touching on those concentration camps, but it feels like it's getting like closer and closer into them and what the experience of being in that camp was like. It's another book with not much of a plot. Like, there's not really a huge through line. It is again studying a time period and the mentalities of different people, the experiences of different people throughout this time period. It is much more accessibly written than I thought it might be. I'm finding it very readable and very propulsive and compelling, which is good because I've spoken on this channel before about how mid-century classics often lose me with a sort of distance to them, but this feels like, in writing style, more similar to an earlier 20th century novel or a late 19th century, which I find to be one of the more accessible periods of classics to read. So I'm enjoying that. I do occasionally get a bit lost which is with names, which is entirely my own issue. It's just when names are unfamiliar to you, they are harder to keep straight in your head, I find anyway, personally, although I was also getting confused between who people were in here. Maybe I'm just not very good with names, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah, actually, I'm getting confused with names in Vanity Fair as well. I keep forgetting who the Osborns are. So yeah, I'm just not very good at keeping names straight, apparently. Maybe it's reading too many books at once as well. But anyway, yes, I am enjoying it so far. I've also begun The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Mishima, Yukio Mishima. I am like 15% of the way through, so only just begun. This is another one. I'm reading a lot of mid-century classics at the moment. I think they tend to be shorter, and if I'm trying to read a lot of classics, then the shorter ones are going to be the ones I end up going for. But yeah, so far it's the style of writing. Always hard to tell whether it's the style of the writer or the translation. This one was translated by John Nathan, and I don't read Japanese, so I can't tell you whether the style is from the translation or from the writer, but I am think it does feel a lot more mid-century than the Ngugi wa Thiongo, so it does have that distance to it. We've only had perspective of 2 characters. It is a weird, creepy coming-of-age story, which is something that I've talked about enjoying. Not creepy in any sort of supernatural way so far, and I don't think it will get there, just sort of an exploration of the weirder sides of humanity. But the difference is that this is from the perspective of, well, partly from the perspective of a 13-year-old boy and partly from the perspective of a sailor, and I've been enjoying them when they are teenage girls, but we'll see how a teenage boy differs in that sense. So for now I'm going to work, but I will see you again later. Morning, hello, hi. I've left my tripod downstairs and I can't be asked, so here we are. So today is August bank holiday in the UK, which means it's the 29th of August, and in this month when I was supposed to be reading all the classics, I've read 2 classics so far, so all going well. But as I said, today's bank holiday, got nothing planned except filming a video and tidying and maybe baking, so I'm hopefully going to finish the 3 classics I'm partway through. So we have The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, which I'm halfway through and I've told you about already. A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi wa Thiongo, which I am just over halfway through, and I've also talked to you about already. And I've got about 3 hours left on my Vanity Fair audiobook, which I've also told you about already. So hopefully I will finish those 3 and I will catch you up on what I think of them when I'm done. I've also started listening to the audiobook of 10 Days That Shook the World, so I haven't talked to you about that, but I'll hopefully read that as well today because it's not a super long audiobook if I listen to it a bit faster, and it is a classic piece of reportage by a journalist, an American journalist who was in Russia during the October Revolution in 1917. And I've never read a classic non-fiction before, I don't think, so looking forward to trying that out. I've listened to the introduction so far, but yeah, I'm looking forward to trying some non-fiction, and I was at one point in my life kind of obsessed with Russia, so I think it's a good entry into classic non-fiction, and then that means we'll have 2 days left of August to try and read as many books as I can in 2 days whilst I'm working. Probably not that many, maybe 1 more. But yeah, I will read all the books and get back to you, and maybe show you baking cookies and tidying, because that's all I've got on, so very exciting. Hello, so it's much later now, and when I tell you that this day has gotten away from me in the same way that this entire month got away from me, I don't think you'll be surprised. So we are in my office now. This was the area that needed tidying, as you can see. You can see that it's a terrible mess. Where I film is here, so usually I am trying hard to crop out the mess that is behind me, but I am letting you in to my shameful little secret right now. This room is kind of out of the way of our house, so things that don't have a home or need to, basically this stuff needs to go to the dump, but it needs to be sorted before it can go. Not the dump, but the recycling centre, but it needs to be sorted before it can go there, and I just haven't done it for weeks. So here we are, and I'm going to do my best to sort everything as best as I possibly can. I also need to get some sort of storage for this little weird under the stairs alcove that I have here, so that it can be more neatly organised. I'm not an organised person, I'm not a tidy person. Digitally, very organised, but when stuff moves about, not so much, not a tidy person. So I am trying my best to do better, and that's what we're doing now. I have finished 2 of the books that I meant to read so far, so I will talk to you about them later when I feel like I'm not in the middle of feeling very overwhelmed by a task, so I'll talk to you about them then. But 2 books out of 4 is, well, it's not great, but another thing I am, along with procrastinating tasks I don't want to do, I am also very good at setting myself very high standards and failing to meet them. Giving myself tasks I couldn't possibly do, 4 books in one day, it's not really my style. So I know other people can do it, but I don't think I ever have. Maybe once. Anyway, regardless, we can stop delving into my psyche now, and I'm going to get on with this while I listen to 10 Days That Shook the World. One good thing about listening to non-fiction on audiobook is I feel much more capable of listening to it faster, because I listen to podcasts on 2.7 speed. If I'm listening to a non-fiction audiobook, I feel like 2.5 is fine, but I don't feel that I can do that with fiction. Like, I could hear it, but I don't enjoy it. So with non-fiction, I don't mind. So I'm going to get on with some early 20th century reportage and separating out paper and cardboard into 2 separate things, because my recycling centre says they're different, even though I've always put cardboard with paper everywhere else. So yes, we'll do that. I'll show you as much as I can, but really I'm feeling quite disheartened right now. Hello, so clearly the sun went down whilst I was doing this, and it's not the best lighting in here, otherwise I get these weird shadows. But I'm not gonna lie and say it's tidy in here now, but the hole is mostly empty. Those other things need to go, one's in electronics and one's, I don't know where you put the picture. But I've got a bag of cardboard, a bag of plastic, not the best, but yes, to go to the recycling centre at some point when I can get my boyfriend to drive there, because I can't drive, so and I don't think I can get these bin bags on my bike. Yeah, so I mean, it's still not tidy. I think that's my desk. Probably not the best shot, and this is a pile of stuff because I don't have any like shelving or units or anything in here. It's hard to properly tidy, but at least I've got the rubbish. It's kind of more organised. I want to get it properly organised and lovely before people come and visit in October, because it's my birthday in October. I've talked about it a lot. I'm turning 30 in October. I'm taking October off YouTube, so I think I've mentioned that before. I'll probably mention it a few times in September, so people are aware, in case they don't watch all the videos. So if you get tired of hearing it, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm taking October off in order to become a 30-year-old. I'm going to try and finish reading some books, see how far I can get, and I will talk to you tomorrow and actually talk about the books, because I feel like I'm just kind of a sweaty mess from tidying. I'm not all together today, I'm not all here, so we'll see you tomorrow when hopefully I'll be a bit more coherent. I think the word I wanted was coherent. Hello! So, been a while. It is now the 4th of September and this video should have gone up already. I think that's kind of the theme of this vlog. Everything has been very terribly unorganised, and I have not done my best, but I have finished 4 more books, and I did finish them all in August, and I just never spoke to you about them. So hopefully I will be coherent at this point, and we're going to do a rapid fire wrap up of the 4 books that I finished. Since I talked to you about them already, I think I kind of covered most of it for most of them. So Vanity Fair, it went along in the same vein towards the end. I don't want to do spoilers necessarily, but I appreciated that it's not your standard morality tale. There is more to it than that, which is interesting, a slightly different perspective, and I enjoyed it, although it was a little neatly wrapped up for me. But I also think that these very long Victorian novels that are serialised aren't necessarily my favourite, because it did feel very, very repetitive. And I think if you'd stretched it out over the course of several weeks, as it would have been released in the newspaper over months of time, then it would be more enjoyable. But it felt like a lot of the same situations were happening over and over again, because I read it in a condensed time period. And so I don't think that serializations really benefit from that. Something to think about, I guess, if that's something that you are reading. And yeah, for me, it was enjoyable, racist, but it wasn't, I don't think, special. It didn't really stand out for me as a classic that I'm going to love. I actually don't think any of these really particularly stood out as classics that I love. So I also finished A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi wa Thiongo, and this really did have some lovely writing, as I said. It was, the way the tension was built and then the way that that was handled towards the end was, I did think, very interesting and very unexpected. It didn't do what I thought it was going to do with that. It's because that wasn't the point. Like, the novel was an exploration of different people's experience and the harrowing nature of the Mau Mau concentration camps, and it does go into detail about those further on into the book and the brutalities there. The sort of mystery element of it that there isn't central to it, and so the way that that tension is built and dissipates, the way that that mystery gets resolved, is not what you would expect from something more thrilling. I think I found it difficult to get to grips with this book. I found that I wasn't quite like connected to or engaged with it, but I can't quite think why that would be, because like I said, I enjoyed the writing. I thought that the characters were, maybe that's what it is that some of the characters, they didn't feel that independent from one another. I didn't feel like I could warm to this book. I thought it was quite skillfully done, but it just, yeah, I'm not 100% sure why, but I did enjoy it. I think that the one that I've enjoyed the most is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima. This one, definitely, if you're into that kind of weird, dark books about the deterioration of society and the weird things that people get up to, I think you would like this. There's a very brutal animal torture scene in the middle, so if you're not into that, that's like a trigger warning for animal torture in here. I wouldn't read it if you feel squeamish about that. The way that that set the tension for the end of the book was well done. I think I would still probably put this at a 4 rather than a 5. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I thought some of the writing, like I said, was absolutely wonderful, and this is a translation, but it is that kind of detached style. It does remind me of things like The Discomfort of Evening, but that one worked more for me, and I think it's because this one doesn't really, I don't feel like it dives so much into the actual psychology of the characters. I feel like it's a little more removed even from them. But I did enjoy it. I did think it worked well. And I'm glad I read it because, like I said, it's a book that my dad loves. So I'm going to have to talk to my dad. Maybe he's where I get my fondness for weird dark books from, because I didn't know that this was his thing, but it's very similar to a lot of those creepy dark books. Earthlings, or it's not quite that far, but if you've liked it, I think that you would like this. Yeah, it's a short classic, so if you're looking to read more short classics from around the world, then I think this one would be a good one. And then I also read 10 Days That Shook the World by John Reed, who was an American socialist journalist who was in Russia during the October Revolution, and this is his tale of a very pivotal part of the October Revolution. So I said I was listening to this quite fast, and I slowed it down to track because I found myself getting a bit lost with all of the names of all of the different committees and parties, which all have very similar names, like the Socialist Party of Russia or the Real Socialist Party of Russia, much like the IRA, you know, they've just got very similar names, and so it's like I'm not sure who everyone is. There were different sections of it. There were parts where he was in meetings and he was reporting what people had actually said, who stood up and said what, who supported what motions and stuff. And I enjoyed that to begin with because, like I said, it reminded me of A Place of Greater Safety by Hilary Mantel. It reminded me of the French Revolution. But it did get fairly repetitive towards the end, all of this dictations of letters or the orders that were written and talking verbatim about what people had said in committees. I didn't enjoy that as much as the parts where he talks about himself walking around St. Petersburg and going into the Winter's Palace and his encounters with various different people. I thought that that was much more interesting, much more immediate, and more what I had thought the whole thing would be about. But of course, people siding with different people and committees and all that sort of thing. Revolution does seem to get bogged down in bureaucracy quite easily from reading about the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution. If you want to learn about the Russian Revolution, I think it would probably be a very good place to start, and you could take lots of notes from it, but as an enjoyable piece of non-fiction, less so. I meant to read classics all of August, and I read 6 classics. I thought I would do a little bit better than that. The other ones I read Reuben Sachs and Bonjour Tristesse, but I thought I would do more than 6 in a month, but you know, at least now I've gone from 12 to 18 classics before I turn 30. I'm definitely not going to read 12 classics in the next few months, but at least I've made an attempt. And I enjoyed doing this to an extent. I'm hopefully going to get back into being more prepared about things and more on the ball in the future. If you enjoyed this video, I'll put more videos where I talk about classics here, so you can go and check those out if that's what you're interested in. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and to subscribe. I attempt to put out videos twice a week, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye!